Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, traders. Steve here at Logic FX Trading, and welcome to this review of the dollar index. And what we're going to do is we review this every single day, as you know, but basically it's about saying what's been happening, what we've been thinking, what has actually transpired, why we've been thinking what we've been thinking. When I say we, I probably mean me, and basically, where's it going to go next over the next month or so? That's the main question, because if we can get a bigger view of where it's going to go, we'll understand the reason why I make the decisions that I do. So let's go back first, and we'll have a look, just an overview, quickly an overview of the reasons why that I thought that this was coming down. And the reasons are, as we know, we'll just run through it. We're in an A position here. It's 5 waves down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Therefore, it's not finished according to Elliott wave. We should get some sort of 3, and then we should get another 5 wave down. And that will be the completion of the A wave of the correction of the previous 7 years up, which was a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with very complex corrections in between. Okay, so that's what we've been looking for. That's what's been all of our analysis on the daily and the 1 hour time frame. It's all been based on that bigger picture, and if you've got that bigger picture in your head, then that can guide you into how you interpret what's going on. Because when we look at a chart on a 1 hour time scale, or even worse down to a 15-minute time scale, you'll see patterns everywhere. You'll see setups everywhere. And what we need to do is trade it in the right direction. So we get our direction from our bigger analysis, and then from there we look for the trades that are going to go in that direction, hoping that the one we get into is the one that really goes. And when you get into a trade that really goes, that will make up, more than make up, for any losses you've had along the way. And that's how you'll boost your account, guys. If you try to get into little trades up and down, an hour here, 2 hours there, half a day there, you will end up losing your account, because you will win some, you'll lose some, you'll win some, you'll lose some, you'll win some, you'll lose some. And slowly but surely your account will erode until it's eroded to the point it's maybe 50% down. Now panic sets in, and what you then do is, instead of either changing how you're trading, you actually trade the same way, but you double up and you put more and more money into it, and you get maybe you get a bit of luck here and there, and you start to boost it up and you get back up to 70%. But you continue with that type of trading, and then you start getting it wrong again, and you double up and double up and double up until eventually you're on zero and you've lost your whole account, and you give up because you say, you know, that trading thing just isn't for me. It doesn't work. It's a lot of mumbo jumbo. I'm going to go back to whatever it is that you do to make money. Okay, guys, to stop that from happening, we need to keep a level head, and we need to work at it slowly but surely over weeks and months and maybe even years, until you get what it is. Okay, now, so to that effect, what on earth is going on? Why has this not come back? And why did I think it would come back? Well, we know that it should be a zigzag, because it's certainly not a flat. This part here is the little join between the 5 wave down there and the 5 wave there. We're getting a join, as it were. And it can either be a flat correction, it can be an expanded flat, it can be, you know, whatever it wants to be, but most often you get a zigzag. And this has come up in a manner and stayed up here for the same period of time almost that it stayed down there. It stayed up there, and it hasn't given us that pullback that we expected. That part there. A, B, C would be our completed zigzag. So I expected to go A, B, C. Obviously not directly like that. There would be complications in between. But A, B, C, that's the type of thing we've been looking for. There's it there. It's the join between that part and that part of a bigger zigzag. So why have we not got that? Well, there's a couple of reasons. First of all, it is possible, not all right, before we get into the reasons why that hasn't happened yet, let's go and look at some other zigzags to see the reason why I've been calling it short. And there's a few really, let's take a look at this zigzag, for example, which was the fourth wave on the way down, and it was a nice zigzag. But let's measure it. So it starts there, the first leg comes up to there, and the part that pulls back came down to approximately 50% of the move up. Okay, that's the first measurement we'll have on it. The next measurement is, once you've had the pull back, where does it finish? So we use your extension tool, we pull it back to there. It came up to the 127.2 from, that's 127% of the initial wave up. Okay, if we go and take another typical zigzag, for example that one, and they're not all the same, guys, this is just typical, and we measure this one and we say the first leg finish, where did it come back to? It came back to the 61.8%. And then where was the projection of it? The projection, 127.2. Let's just zoom in a little bit to see how accurate that is. Well, this one actually came 138.2, but pretty close to 127. Extension. Okay, so with that in mind, when we got this, because I know this, because I've been training in this for years, learning this for years, when we got this move up to here, and we said it was a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Initially we said that was a 1, 2, 3, 3, 4, 5, and then as it developed we said, oh, okay, it isn't finished, so possibly it's a 1, 2, and then that's our third wave, and then a 4 and a 5 to there. Now, if you're going to take that as being red, and that is actually the fifth wave coming up, then there is still a possibility that this is a simple flat correction. But let's not put it there in the meantime. Let's just leave it where it is in the meantime. So given that, where would you expect this to come back down to, given what we just looked at? Well, you would expect it to come back down to there or there. And that's what I've been calling ever since we got, actually from there where I thought this thing was over. I said it should come back down to here before it goes on. Didn't happen. It pushed on up. I suspect that is now the complete move to there. And then we got this, and we expected this to go, and it didn't happen. It's pulled back up. Now if you look at it on a lower time scale, it looks like we're forming a triangle. So what we've got to say now is, well, what's our options here? Well, first of all, and let's, if that's over, where is this going to go to? There's the other thing. So let's just look at that first before we look at when it's going to happen. First it says if this wave is finished, and there's a reason why it may not be, so we'll look at that in a moment, but let's say this is finished, where can this go to? Well, the problem we have is that because it hasn't pulled back, that 127 probably doesn't look realistic, because if this had pulled back and then went, then it may, if it pulled back probably a bit deeper to there, then we would have equality. In other words, the length of that wave with that put on it would bring us up into that region, 127, 138. So that gives us a nice zigzag. There's our target. But given that it hasn't come back down, there's a few other things that we need to look at in this. And there's a few other options. So let's just look at our options. And we'll go back, we'll go down, we'll take that out, because obviously when you draw things, it kind of sets your mind as to what it is. So let's just go in and we'll have a closer look at this. Let's go to the 4-hour time scale. And take a look at this. If there's two things here. If this is a triangle, then which starts from there, and we've got a barrier across the top, so it's a barrier triangle, it's a continuation. Now you can get those in a zigzag, but I would have expected it to be a bit deeper, you know, a triangle, something like that, to at least give us a pullback to give our zigzag. So you can get them, but you would expect them to at least give you a bit of a pullback down, and we haven't had that. This has been a flat triangle so far, in that it's a barrier, this is rising, it's a continuation triangle, if that's what it is. So given the position that it's in, it's either not a triangle or it's a fourth wave. So in other words, if this is our 1 and that's our 2 and this is our 3, say to there, is this whole thing our fifth wave before, guess what happens next? That. Or is it a fourth wave if we suggest that the third wave finishes there, and this is our fourth wave, which you can get as a triangle in the fourth wave position, then that means that this whole move isn't over yet, and we could get another push up to there into the 127 position, giving us a completed wave before, guess what? Before we get our B wave, and then we get our push on up. So those are some of the options, guys, that are open to us, and that is if that's a triangle. Let's have another look at it and see what else it could be. It could be an ending diagonal, although to be honest, I would have expected an ending diagonal to at least push up a little bit, push up a little bit, push up before it dropped. That's why I'm a little bit wary of saying it's an ending diagonal. Therefore, it's either a fourth wave for me, or else this isn't correct. And as I said the other week, if that's the top of the fifth wave, and maybe even that's it, because maybe the fifth part, maybe it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for a third wave, fourth wave, fifth wave, A, B, C. Now, I'm not saying it's going to necessarily come down as deep as that, but it certainly could come down and break that. Now, so that still means that we could possibly get a C wave in here. And if we go and look at it closer, and I'm just looking at possibilities here, guys. I'm not calling a direction at the moment. If that's an impulsive wave, there's nothing to say that that isn't a second wave, an expanded flat of a second wave. Let's say we put it to there, it's come out back up 50%. And if that's an expanded second wave, guess what we could get next? A third wave, a fourth wave of sorts, and a fifth wave, which would get us very close down to that 61.8 retracement, or at least get us to the 50%. So that is still possible. What do we need to happen to say that that's no longer possible? Well, this needs to do that. If this does that, then that idea is out. Because if it does that, then this could well be a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or possibly, well, given it's a barrier, it may well come up to there. But also if it's it could become a more complex E wave before it goes. And then once it goes, if that's what it's going to do, and I'm not, once we've established this as a triangle, guys, it's not coming back down from here. It's going to push on up. And then what we've got to say to ourselves, well, if this is pushed on up, is that the B wave? And we know we don't normally get a triangle in a B wave position. Therefore, for me, it's a fourth wave. And there's our fifth wave, before we get our pullback and a move on up. So that is my view of what's going on here. Let's go and look at, now we've got to start looking for evidence that that's what it is. That also starting to look like a triangle because it hasn't broken out and pulled back up. So we're saying this is a 1, and there's a 2 in there, and a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now we're getting a triangle for a fourth wave. We could get another push down, which gives us our fifth wave before we get our pullback, and then it goes. Either way, both of these look like they're going to go. They're not going to come back this time round. So more likely, let's just go back to DXY. So what I'm looking for now to complete, we'll probably get this on Monday, so we'll know on Monday what's going to happen with this. If we go into the 1 hour time scale, if this pushes on up like that, breaks that top, pushes on up to give us a little three wave structure coming up here. It may get to the top because it's a barrier triangle, but it may not get to the top. It could just pull back and then go. Or as we said earlier, it could become more complex, like the New Zealand CAD that we traded the other day. You can see that better there, where we had a 1, 2, 3, 4, and the fifth wave, the E wave, became complex. So it turned it from a 5 wave structure into a 9 wave structure, which is perfectly normal for a triangle. The only thing here that isn't normal is that that doesn't look like a 3 wave structure, guys. But sometimes you just got to bite your tongue and look at the overall structure and say, well, whether that's 3 waves or not, and whether that's 3 waves or not, this thing definitely looked like a triangle, and then it broke out, and that's exactly what we said it would do. We said it was symmetrical, and that, in other words, that's coming down and that's coming up. And symmetrical triangles can break either way, but then the position comes into play. What's happened before it? And where is it in the big scheme of things? And what had happened before it was we'd had this move down very, very sharp, and therefore we'd expect a similar move on the other side until it gets down to around about wherever the trend line is. And remember, these are flexible. When it gets down to here, we'll start thinking again about what it's going to do. We've had a bit of a pullback, and now it looks like it's going to continue on. The important thing is the triangle, guys. So we'll go back to DXY. What we're saying here is this could come up, give us a small pullback and go, ending the triangle, or it could become more complex back and forward, and then it could go. So what's in conclusion, let's have a quick look at what on a trading time scale can happen next. Well, this could be a little expanded flat for a second wave, and then off this goes, completing our C wave, or it could come up like this, giving us an E wave, which may or may not be complete. But if it does that and pulls back, we're starting to look long, guys. From here, I'm going to let it do what it wants to do, and if it goes short and breaks that bottom, I'll be calling it short. If it comes long, I'll let it go long until it either gets to there or decides to pull back. If it pulls back before it gets there and gives us a long setup, I'll be calling it long. Okay guys, that's a little overview of DXY. I just thought it was important to do that. It's kind of a monthly overview, as it were, rather than just what we do in the day-to-day basis. Okay, that'll do us for today. Bye for now.